Familiar face is back atop the top 10 of the NFL draft. College football coaches are getting fired left and right. We've got more Senior Bowl invites to talk about. And how's that defensive line class looking? We're going to look at the top 5. All that and more on tonight's Draft Countdown podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Draft Countdown podcast. I'm your co-host, Brian Bosarge, joined as always by my co-host, Shane P. Hallam. Shane, we are 161 days, 22 hours, 58 minutes, and 20 seconds away from the 2024 NFL Draft.
Last 2 weeks of the regular season of college, and we get to the championship games, the bowls. It's coming up hot here, Brian.
We got a loaded show tonight, too, and I mean loaded. If you're listening live in the chat, you got a question you want to have answered in the show, go ahead and drop it in there. If you're following along on Twitter, send us a question there at Draft Countdown. If you're a member of our Discord, please send us a question there. If you're not a member of our Discord, go to draftcountdown.com. Top right corner search bar, there's a link to join the Discord as well. And we ask, as always, subscribe to the channel if you're new to us on YouTube, and like the videos and share them out. All right. Like I said, a busy show tonight. We're going to start hot and heavy. College football coaches getting fired out the yin-yang already, Shane. We got to start with the big one, right? Because it's the biggest money involved. I think we knew it was coming, and we were still surprised it actually happened. Texas A&M has fired Jimbo Fisher. Like something between $75 and $80 million. They've got to buy him out, plus his assistants. Plus, you're going to have to buy out probably another coach. You're going to have to pay his assistants and then pay his salary. This is going to end up costing Texas A&M somewhere probably between $120 and $140 million.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worth that. just stuck it out a year, but don't give that contract out. And if I'm a coach getting hired there,
you know what they pay,
right? Like, okay, give me something in the ballpark. Give me something guaranteed. Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher lived off that win against Alabama a couple years back and has kind of lived off that, but really hasn't been a great coach. He's had great recruits and never developed them, and that should get you fired.
Right. I agree, and he should probably cut a check to Jameis Winston as well, just for helping the cause.
Yeah.
Because without Jameis Winston, he doesn't get the national championship on his resume, which means, he probably doesn't get that contract. Another coach in the SEC West was terminated and is the first SEC coach to never finish his first full season as head coach. Zach Arnett let go at Mississippi State. He started off with some bad karma. Mike Leach apparently had, some handshake deals with some of his assistants for new contracts, and he just didn't honor those and let them go. Basically scrapped the air raid, wanted to bring in his own people. Didn't really work out. That kind of bad juju sets you off on the wrong foot right out the go, and don't make emotional hires is the other lesson to be learned here.
Yeah, I don't get the firing, like the assistant thing, all right, but if you hired him knowing the air raid's going to be scrapped and all he's stuck with is a full team for this offense, like
that's on you.
that's on, like, don't fire him less than a year later. Honestly, it's funny because the offense was so bad that the defense gave up points, but the defense wasn't that bad. They really didn't give up that much in terms of yardage. It just seems like a short-sighted mistake. And now what are you going to do? You have a team that's going to be half air raid, half this system, and you're going to bring in someone else for a different system. Like, Mississippi State could be in the hole for a long time.
I agree. Zach Arnett's not going to be out of work long. He's a really good defensive coordinator. There's at least two schools with their initials that are U, S, and C. Both of them will probably be looking for defense coordinators at the end of the season, and he would fit in well at either place, I believe. But yeah, anxious to see what goes on there. Mountain West, changing of the guard, Boise State. Andy Avalos did not work out there in Boise.
Yeah, the expectations is just a slightly bit higher from those glory years of Boise State, but in today's NIL and getting recruits, like, I don't think Boise's the place to be anymore.
The blue turf doesn't really hit anymore to the young kids.
Actually, I think it's one of the worst jobs you can have because I think the expectations are higher than they should be for that job.
I wonder if they bring back Brian Harsden. Throwing it out there. He's looking for work.
Could be a possibility.
And he knows how to win there. So I thought about that when I saw that go across. Not a firing per se, but San Diego State head coach Brady Hoke is retiring. Now, I don't know if this is retirement or if he's actually just retiring. I don't know, but he's stepping away at the end of this season. That's another team that feels like a sleeping giant type. But they've got to get better on offense.
Yeah, Brady Hoke from the Michigan glory days of his 3 years there, we remember. But going back to San Diego State, I wonder if this is just like, see ya, and he doesn't really want to get fired from this job,
Yeah, probably. Heard a lot of talk that, and maybe he'll have other opportunities come open, but Washington offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb is a name I've heard early linked to that job and would probably be a good get for them.
Yeah.
Before we get to one rumored firing, because I know this one's close to you, so to speak, Penn State offensive coordinator Mike Yurcik let go after that abomination of a game against Michigan this week.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it was bad, and so I get it. I don't think the offense is improving here, and he was also the quarterback's coach, and Drew Allard just has not developed the way you needed a 5-star recruit to. So James Franklin, I mean, after this year might be a little bit on the hot seat. Like, you got to win one of these big games here pretty soon, and next year. You get USC, you get Washington. Not going to be just 2 games that you're going to lose. There might be more here.
Yeah, that's we might be talking this time next year about James Franklin getting let go. Finally, a rumored thing that could happen after this week: UCLA and Chip Kelly might be parting ways here after their game against Southern Cal on Saturday. That is the rumor.
Yeah, I think from a strictly on-field perspective, I wouldn't make that move. Not that Chip Kelly's been wildly successful, but at least I think the system's working. You're trying to develop Dante Moore into this system, but there's been some rumors, maybe some things in terms of off the field, just how he's kind of managing the program. They want to get rid of him. I don't think Chip Kelly will be a free agent for long. I think a team's going to hire him pretty quickly if he wants to be hired again.
Yeah. It's just one of those deals, right? They haven't been as successful as I thought they would be this year. I thought they'd be a lot better than 6-4. I mean, they're staring down 7-5, probably right in the face. Yeah. I can see them making the move. He's back in TV if he doesn't get back in coaching. So, I mean, he's not going to be out of work long.
Yeah, he's fine.
Anybody else just quickly off the top of your head that you can see maybe a higher profile in getting let go?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think there's a lot of guys that might get close. But I don't think I see anyone else that's going to be a big name. I think Dabo Sweeney's got it. That's got to start getting hot. I don't think you can fire him right now. It's not going to happen. But I don't know if there's another like big high profile coach that's getting the axe. Do you have anyone?
I'd say Sam Pittman at Arkansas, towing the line a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
But other than that, no, nothing else. All right, let's move on to the top 10 update. As we do every week on this show, we look at the top 10 of the NFL draft order after its week, courtesy of our good friends at tankathon.com. And the familiar face that's back on top is the Chicago Bears. By way of the Carolina Panthers, they are back at the number 1 pick in the draft, as the Panthers are a half game ahead of the Giants and New England, who currently resided second and third. The Giants just look bad, and New England somehow looks worse.
Yeah, the Giants actually now the betting favorite to have the number 1 pick. So take that for what it's worth.
I mean, if we're going to keep trotting Tommy DeVito out there every week, I damn sure say they're the betting favorite to be the number 1 pick.
Yeah, you're not winning another one.
Poor Tommy DeVito. He's catching strays on this show every week now, and it's not his fault.
Yeah. No, look.
He never should have been.
Yeah, you never should be starting at the very least. We'll see if Matt Barkley gets the call soon.
I would imagine so. I mentioned New England at 3. That doesn't look like it's getting better at all. Arizona, they're all the way down to 4 now. Kyler Murray's back. I feel like they're gonna keep steadily getting better as we go. They may not win. They might end up winning like 6 games or so, but I feel like they're gonna play better every week, and they're gonna sneak some games in. Chicago currently picking 5 with a 3-7 record. Green Bay now at 6. That team's just finds ways to lose every week, it seems. The Rams at 7, Matt Stafford back. So we'll see if the Rams lull kind of ends a little bit. They're on a 3-game losing streak. The Tennessee Titans have lost 2 in a row after the initial burst by Will Levis. Maybe he is who we think he is.
Yeah.
And the Atlanta Falcons, I mentioned that we've talked to. They've now lost 3 in a row. Arthur Smith probably going to get canned, right? Because he is just not good at what he's doing right now.
Bad losses they've had.
I mean, you've got offensive weapons out the yin yang, and what are you doing, man?
And you lost to Josh Dobbs, who knew 10 plays. So.
10 plays. That's not good. The Washington Commanders round out the top 10 with the 10th pick of the draft. So that's that. Anything standing out to you there?
Not much. I think it's interesting. Justin Fields will be back for the Bears, which 2 of their wins have been with Tyson Bagent at quarterback, 2 of the 3. So I don't know if that helps or hurts their position here in the top 10. And Sam Howell for Washington leads the league in passing yards, and they're still picking in the top 10. So I don't know. I think the Jets are going to find a way. The Jets are struggling. I think they're going to find a way into this top 10 soon.
They keep trotting Zach Wilson out there every week. I don't understand. They have a maybe not a Super Bowl level defense, but they've got a win an AFC playoff game defense, and their offense is just abhorrent. But Denver seems to have righted the ship. Looks like they've won 3 in a row now.
Yeah. Top 5 defense right now in the NFL over the
after giving up 70 points in a game.
Well, over the last 3 weeks. So
yes,
and I mean they played the Chiefs and the Bills. It's not like they played some crappy quarterbacks there.
And somehow your Pittsburgh Steelers 6-3, being outgained in every single game they played.
Look, that's just a good team. Closing the fourth every time. Kenny Pickett, clutch. I mean, we're going up against a monster quarterback this weekend, Dorian Thompson-Robinson for Cleveland now. So,
yep, Deshaun Watson, for those of you who haven't heard, is out for the year with he's having shoulder surgery. So he's done. All right. Let's look back at week 11 of college football. As we do every week, we look at the best offensive and defensive player from the games that we watched last week. I was surprised at how good UNLV wide receiver Ricky White is. I bet on UNLV a lot, but haven't watched them a lot, right? But what I saw was a good-sized receiver who runs good routes, catches the ball away from his body, snatches it, and's got decent speed. Caught 8 balls for 144 yards and a touchdown in their blowout win over Wyoming the other night. I was very impressed with Ricky White in that offense.
He's a producer. I think, I don't know if he gets drafted, but Ricky White has the type of athleticism to maybe be a 6th, 7th round pick, play some special teams. So really good call there.
Who's the best offensive player you watched this week?
I'm going receiver as well. I'm going with Tez Walker, the receiver for North Carolina, who wasn't allowed to play early in the season because of the NCAA, and now is just a monster. And I mean, against Duke, it was a monster game. He had a catch on the sideline that was phenomenal. The athleticism, the body control is there. Playing from the slots, just the slant just wide open all the time. And Drake May is looking to him 7 for 162. I think Tez Walker could come out and be a day 2 pick when all said and done for the 2024 draft.
This is not the last time you're going to hear us talk negatively about the NCAA tonight. Spoiler alert. Best defensive player that I watched this week was for Louisville, and it's their edge rusher, Ashton Gallott. Just an absolute menace in that game against Syracuse. He gets around the edge with very little resistance. He's only a 3rd-year player. If he comes out this year, I mean, he's definitely going to be he's going to have to stand up at the next level. He's not going to be a hand-in-the-ground guy like he is at Louisville. He's only 6'4", listed at 220. But against the Orange the other night, 7 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and had a fumble recovery on a strip sack by someone else. Like I said, Syracuse didn't offer a whole lot of resistance. Virginia didn't offer a whole lot of resistance the other night. But Gallott just made plays, and he's made plays all season. He's been highly productive the entire season. And is a big reason why Louisville's only got 1 loss on the year and has a chance to win the ACC.
Louisville's good. They're a good squad, offense and defense. So I need to move Gallott up my board. I've definitely been impressed when I've seen him as well.
Who's the best defensive player you watched this week?
Well, I'm going with the guy that I picked this game to watch. It's Quinyon Mitchell, the corner from Toledo, going up against Bowling Green. They challenged him early. He was on ball defense is just phenomenal. I mean, he was sticking with the receiver even when he gave up a catch, short catches. Would get the tackle immediately. Nice wrap up, heavy tackle. He had 6 tackles in the game, and then Bowling Green gets the ball, minute 45 to go, down by a point. All they have to do is get in field goal range. They try to challenge Quinyon Mitchell twice in a row. And it was like, that's not the whole game. They're throwing to the tight end because Harold Fannin did, because we're not challenging the boundary. And then they tried to do it again. It was a bad choice. And Mitchell essentially won the game for Toledo in this one.
I'm going to talk a little bit about him and myself in just a little while. That's one of my games this week, just to watch him. But yeah, so that's it for our look back at week 11 of college football. But now, Shane, I'm going to do a little something different this week. We've had 3 weeks of college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.
So we've had time to crunch the data. We've had time to look ahead. Who do we think is going to win the rest of these games the rest of the way? And we're going to lay out who we think are the 4 teams that are going to make this year, what could be the final year, by the way, of the 4-year playoff. If the higher ups have their way, and they will because money. We're going to project who will be the 4 teams that will make the college football playoff, and just for fun, we'll put the last 2 teams we have out. So, Shane, we'll start with you. 1, 2, 3, and 4, then 5 and 6.
All right, the 4 teams that'll make the college football playoff. Number 1 is Ohio State. I think they beat Michigan. They get the number 1 seed. Number 2 is Florida State. I don't think Florida State's very good, but I do think they beat Louisville and win out for the season. Number 3 is Alabama. I think Alabama is going to run the table and win the SEC. And number 4 is Oregon. I think Oregon wins out, beats Washington, gets into the college football playoff. 2 out. Georgia, I think, losing the SEC championship pretty badly to Alabama. And then Michigan losing to Ohio State is my last 2 out.
I like it. I thought we were going to be vastly different here, but we are not.
No.
For the most part. Number 1 for me will be the Ohio State University. As I'm with you, I think they run the table. Florida State for me is number 2. Number 3 for me is also Alabama. But number 4 for me is the Georgia Bulldogs, followed by Texas and Washington. 5 and 6. Michigan falls off.
Well, I think you and I were talking a little before the show. Like, we could really use the 12-team playoff.
We need the 12-team playoff this year.
I think Texas drops another game. I think Texas is going to maybe lose in the Big 12 title game to Oklahoma State because they beat Alabama, and that's part of the problem. Is we could really see that'd be crazy for the last year to not have an SEC team make the playoff. But if Alabama beats Georgia, Texas wins out. Texas has to go over Alabama. If Washington wins out, they're undefeated. You have to put them in. So you have a Big 10 champ, ACC champ, both undefeated, and Pac-12 champ undefeated. They're all in. You have to put Texas in over Alabama because Texas beat them in their house. And I just can't see the playoff committee saying no SEC teams this year.
See, this is how I ended up with 2 SEC teams in the final 4-team playoff, because my thought process is Alabama beats Georgia close in the SEC championship game. So they both have 1 loss. Texas also has the 1. I don't think Texas loses again. So I think they beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game. So now you have the scenario. Poor Washington here, I think, is going to beat Oregon State this week, beat Wazoo, but lose to Oregon in the Pac-12 title game. But I think Oregon loses to Oregon State in the final battle there that they're going to play. So you have 2-loss Oregon beating 1-loss Washington. I'm sorry, undefeated Washington. Giving Washington 1 loss, but Oregon's the Pac-12 champ. We keeping up with all this? Okay. We got the little board out. But okay. So in this scenario, I'm just dumped Michigan because I think I'm just going to say Ohio State blows them out. In the last
all right. That
blows them out.
Happens in that game, but
blows them out.
I'll take it.
Michigan has dropped off here for plus whether they want to or not. I think they're going to hold the other stuff against them. Secret backdoor.
If they lose, they're not getting in.
What do you call it? The double secret probation in the meetings. I think they're going to hold that against them. But in this scenario, with Alabama, Georgia, Texas all having 1 loss, I think they rank 1-loss Georgia ahead of Texas, but give Alabama credit for beating Georgia and keep Texas out.
If Texas wins out, they're in over Alabama. Now, there's a chance that we have 4 undefeated teams. Georgia wins out as well, and Texas doesn't get in. But there's no way that the committee, with how they're approaching this right now, it would keep Texas out and put Alabama in unless Texas loses another game. You can't do it. You can't. They played head to head in Tuscaloosa and beat them by double digits. Texas.
I've seen dumber shit with this playoff committee since it started than what we just talked about. I've seen dumber that they've done.
I don't know if I don't think I've ever seen a head-to-head win. Both teams have
obviously for everybody's sanity, the cleanest route here is undefeated Big Ten, undefeated ACC, undefeated SEC, undefeated Pac-12.
Yeah,
and that's the 4 that go. That's the cleanest.
There's no way we're getting that.
But there's no way we're getting that.
It never happens.
It's college football. Chaos will ensue. We'll end up with a 2-loss team in here by the time it's all said and done.
Man. I don't know if we'll get that, but
maybe not.
But it's going to be. I think it's going to be fun. I've fun a couple weeks here, and I hope there's some. I hope there is some controversy. And
let's look at this from another. In the final year of what we expect to be the final year of the 4-year playoff, what would piss more people off than having 2 SEC teams in there? That's the whole.
I think having no SEC teams in there would make more people mad if they had none. They have 0.
They're not leaving them all out.
I mean, like I said, and I think in your scenario, I don't think maybe Alabama gets in as the 4, but Texas definitely has to make it.
So you would, in that scenario that I've laid out, Texas 3, Alabama 4.
Yeah, I think that's what it would be.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on now.
That's fun. I'm excited.
Maybe we do this again before the final playoff vote comes out. That might be less controversial, though. All right, let's move on. Let's look ahead to the 8 games we're watching this week in Week 12. And by God, almost all of our games are on Saturday this week. The only game that's not on Saturday is a game that took place last night, which I presume Toledo won. I'll be watching this at some point, probably tomorrow. Toledo and Bowling Green played last night on ESPN2. And this was all for me to be able to watch Toledo corner Quinyon Mitchell, who Shane has already elaborated on as a stud. Had him in his first round of his last mock draft. Did I put him in my first round of my mock draft this week? I think I did. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe he's in the second round. I went 2 rounds this week.
Yeah, that's exciting.
But anybody from Bowling Green that I should key on?
No.
That's fair.
Like, not really. I was talking about. I'm all mixed up because I watched this game yesterday. So I was talking about this game and the game that I watched the week before.
So you spoiler alerted everything.
I spoiled you on the game.
All right. Well, that's good.
But the game 2 weeks ago, he had an interception too.
So at least I know that I'm going to get a good Quinyon Mitchell game to watch. Maybe he's my defensive player of the week next week.
Look,
maybe he doubles up.
I think he should be. But Toledo has the couple guys that might get drafted here. So. Yeah.
Let's move on. Saturday, 1 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Shane, you'll be watching Appalachian State at James Madison. We're going to talk a little bit more about James Madison later. I really wish we could have saw their edge rusher, Jalen Green, who may still lead the country in sacks, but he's out for the rest of the year with an injury. So that kind of sucks. Nick Kidwell, their offensive tackle, is fun. App State, they're down this year. Brendan Harrington is a decent player, though. Anybody else in this game?
Yeah, I mean, Nate Noel, the running back for App State's finally back from injury, so I'm hoping to see him get a little bit more work. I also like Reggie Brown from James Madison. Yeah, I was really hoping to see Jalen Green, play in this game. I don't know if we'll get him, if he'll declare after the injury now. But it's definitely an intriguing prospect there. He still leads the country in sacks.
There you go. Shane going to ESPN Plus again this time and going back to the FCS ranks 1 p.m. on Saturday. You'll be watching Montana State at Montana. And, well, by God, we got to talk about the third-year kicking prospect you've got on this list from Montana State, Brendan Hall.
Okay.
Is that 6'8"?
6'8",
right?
232 pounds. He's a big kicker there.
He's a tight end. That's not a kicker.
He's listed 6'9" if you want to bump him up, It's pretty good. That's why I had to add him. The prospects of this game are mostly from Montana. Chris Walker, their offensive tackle, be good for a zone blocking scheme, really athletic, probably right tackle. And then Cole Grossman, their tight end, 6'4", 225, plays some slot, plays some in line. I want to watch him, so I'm kind of excited for that.
2:30 p.m. on ESPN. Shane, you'll be watching North Carolina at Clemson. A lot of good prospects to watch in this game. Drake May, can he become QB1? I mean, I think it's a question we're all asking. You watched them last week. We've already talked about Tez Walker. So what are you looking forward to from the Clemson side of things in this one?
Yeah, I mean, Clemson still has a lot of good players, right? We talked last week about Rukor Horo, the defensive lineman who had a Senior Bowl invite last year, went back to school. I think he's intriguing. I like Andrew Makuba, the safety, who's kind of lighter middle fielder, big play guy. Nate Wiggins, the corner from Clemson, maybe has an outside shot at the first round, though he hasn't played as well in recent weeks. Tyler Davis, defensive lineman for Clemson. So still some kind of pieces, even though Clemson hasn't had the year that they thought they would.
Before we talk about the next game, I failed to bring this up earlier when I meant to, but I just want to talk about, you know what, we'll save it because we're going to talk about it a little bit later. Scrap that. Kentucky at South Carolina, 6:30 p.m. on the SEC Network. I'll be watching this game because I was going to watch it anyway, but I needed to watch Kentucky this season, so this is my chance to get them in play. Devin Leary has been disappointing, to say the least, in Liam Cohen's offense, but Kentucky's got some guys on defense. And passively, when I watch them, I've been a big fan of what I think is going to be a good rotational guy on the interior defensive line. Octavius Oxendine from Kentucky. J.J. Weaver is a solid edge rusher for them as well. But Andrew Phillips, their corner, is another good player on defense. But the guy I really want to watch, I've seen him at Vanderbilt, and he's having a stud year. Ray Davis, we've talked about him, their running back. South Carolina, we've talked about them a lot, so I'm not really going to go into much detail with them.
Yeah, I mean, and also look at Kentucky's O-line. Definitely a couple players that I think could get drafted. Marquise Cox, an offensive tackle, and Eli Cox on the inside, perhaps. So kind of a interesting watch as well.
There you go. And that's a good matchup. That's where South Carolina's defensive strength is on their interior defensive line with Boogie Huntley and Taka Hemingway. So that'll be a good matchup to watch. 6:30 p.m. Shane on ABC. What may be the game of the week in college football this week? Washington at Oregon State. Oregon State, 2 losses on the year, but they can definitely play spoiler here down the stretch and still getting that Pac-12 title game. They play Washington this week and Oregon next week, so that's a tough way to close out the season. But if they can get one of 2, they can really shake things up. And I know we're big fans of their offensive tackles. Talise Waga and Joshua Gray, both studs. We've seen a resurgence from DJ Uyunglele this year. Obviously, he was not the problem at Clemson. So you got that there. And you mentioned a couple weeks ago, Andrew Chatfield, their edge rusher. Washington, we've talked about them a lot already this year. Troy Faltanu, their offensive tackle, getting a lot of buzz now positively. We had him as an interior offensive lineman. I've already made the move to kick him back outside because I think that's the NFL is going to see him that way as well. So what are you most looking forward to about this game? Any individual matchups?
I want to see some of the Washington pass rushers up against Fuaga and Gray. We know Braylon Trice and Zion Tupulia-Fatui are good players. Like, let's get that matchup going. Let me see that. So I'm excited for that. And, of course, the Washington receivers, we'll see if they continue to produce against a tough Oregon State secondary.
Yeah, I was going to say, does Oregon State have the DBs to contain those guys? That'll be fun to watch. 7 p.m. on the ACC network. I'll be watching Syracuse at Georgia Tech. I wanted to get a Georgia Tech game in. I've already seen Syracuse, but from last year carrying over, I was a big fan of Georgia Tech's corners, Kenyatta Watson, and especially Lamiles Brooks. So I kind of want to watch those guys. Hopefully they're still up to snuff. You've watched both of these teams this year. Is there a particular Yellow Jacket player that maybe I haven't talked about that I should watch?
I kind of like Eric Reed Jr., their safety. I think he's a little bit intriguing for me. Probably my favorite player on Georgia Tech right now. So, and then some of their corners, Kenyatta Watson, KJ Wallace specifically.
Finally, 7 p.m. on Fox, Texas at Iowa State. I had Texas to watch a few weeks ago, and then Quinn Ewers got hurt, so I lopped it off. Now they've got another player I'm not going to get to see that's hurt. Big news this week was their running back, Jonathan Brooks, torn ACL, out for the rest of this season. Never like to see a running back with the ACL tear. But like I said, I want to see Quinn Ewers. Talk around the campfire is he's going to go back to school next year, so maybe he's not even in this draft class. But I still need to officially get my eyeballs on him. But Texas got a lot of guys. I need to. Jatavian Sanders, their tight end's another guy I really want to watch in this game.
Yeah, I'm excited for the receivers. I mean, Xavier Worthy, we've talked about from Texas, 4.3 speed guy. Then Adonai Mitchell, the transfer from Georgia, 6'3", 190. He's having a great season. He's up into the top 100. And they're going up against TJ Tampa, the corner from Iowa State, who's very good, also potential top 100 prospect. So that's going to be a fun one. I'm excited to hear what you come away with.
Is he a Tampa 2 corner? Is he a cover 2 corner? Or is he a man corner?
I'm not sure that the like 180-pound would work in the Tampa 2 anymore.
No, it would not. All right. So that's going to do it for our look ahead to week 12 of college football this week. But that brings us now, Shane. Are you on a winning streak?
Two in a row. I'm gonna get back up to 500 here, baby.
Look at that.
Look, the believers in Shane, the believers are getting rewarded here.
There we go. We're gonna finish strong. I won last week after my homer pick of South Carolina. They covered pretty handily.
Yeah,
I must say, that's one when I jokingly say never in doubt. That baby was never in doubt last week. All right, so Shane, last year I went through this, and I'm going to make you a believer in this at some point. I am fully on board. Interim coaches, the initial first week after you bring it, you promote the interim coach, you get that bump, you get that juice, you get that win. There's a couple of those I could have gone with this week. Texas A&M, they're not even on the board because I think they're playing Abilene Christian, so they don't even get to count in this week. But Boise State and Mississippi State both with interim coaches, both good lines. But I'm going Boise State on the road at Utah State. I don't even know who the interim coach's name is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. -3.5 the line here. Give me Boise State by a touchdown.
Right. I actually consider Mississippi State, so I like the I like that. I considered Oklahoma State -6.5 against Houston to bounce back from just getting crushed by UCF. I feel like you can bounce back from that, but I'm going with the Brian Bosarge patented way to bet. I'm taking Jacksonville State, baby, -8.5 against Louisiana Tech. I think Jacksonville State, as you will get into in a little bit, they're going to be raring and ready to go and win.
Pissed off.
Yes,
is what that's going to be. Hey, I've worn you down. Next thing you know, you're going to be picking UNLV.
All right, let's not go too far, but
I do love me some betting on Jack State. All right, that brings us to a segment I think is going to be more difficult. We talked about this off air after the show last week. Coming up with 5 interior defensive linemen at the top that we expect to declare is a bit tougher than I think we initially thought. So I'm going to start with the easy one here, and I feel like this is also going to be your number one as well. Number one at the top for me is Illinois defensive lineman Jerzon Newton. He was my number one to start the season. He's my number one now. He's just got the pass rush presence on the inside, tackle for loss machine. He's just a powerful stud, 6'2", 290. I think he's a potential top 15, if not top 10 pick in this draft class.
I agree. He's the only defensive lineman here that I'm like, yes, he helped his stock, and he was already a top pick. So he's the guy that I'm confident about. Jerzon Newton, number one defensive lineman.
Number two for me is a projection. I think he's going to enter the draft class just because of the hype that was coming into the season, but the production because of injuries and stuff wasn't there coming into the season, and I'm not sure the production's quite been there this year, but we're just basing potential. Somebody's got to get it out, right? And that's Mason Amazon Smith from LSU, 6'5", 316, third-year player. I think is going to enter the draft. He's a guy that I'm just going to go with here at 2 because, as we're going to get to later, it gets dicey.
Yeah, he's my number 2 as well. Mason Smith. The production hasn't been there this season, but I think the athleticism really comes through. I think we could see a late surge for Mason Smith, and he's still in that first round conversation when you're 6'5", 316 and moves like he does. It's like, oh, we can make this guy work. So yeah, I think he still comes out.
Yeah. Number 3 on my rankings is going to be different from here because as we talked last week, and I deferred to you because you're the Ohio State guru, you don't think Tyleik Williams is going to come out in this draft class, so I'm leaving him off my board. The third-year player from Ohio State, 6'3", 330. So that brings me down to who will be number 3 on my list here is Georgia defensive lineman Nazir Stackhouse, another one where projection is key here, but he has flashed some brilliance this year, including a near pick 6 a few weeks ago against Missouri, but has had some productive games and has had some games where not so much. But I think Nazir Stackhouse, I don't know if he's a first-round pick. If he is, I think it's late, but he comes in here at number 3 on my board.
He's number 5 on mine, and I agree with everything you said. I think probably not a first-round pick, but an early day 2 pick. Stackhouse, he's 320, but it is more athletic than that build. So I think he's versatile enough that he'll get drafted fairly high. So number 5 on my board.
Who's number 3 on your board?
Number 3 is a 5th-year player that keeps rising up for me, and that's Oregon's Brandon Dorlus. Just probably the best penetrating defensive lineman in terms of pass rush that I've seen this season. Is 5 sacks on the year, leads Oregon in sacks, 290. Just plays low, plays violent, and the first step's really good. I think Dorlus is still kind of underrated out there.
Dorlus is number 5 on my board, but I think is coming up higher. Would have been number 4, but I went back and forth on my number 4 this week, and I put him back in. And that's another guy where the word potential is beaten to death in this because we're just not seeing the production out of a lot of these guys that you want to see. So we have to use the potential word here, and that applies to Miami third-year player Leonard Taylor III, 6'3", 305. I said last week when we were talking about this, I'm going to leave him off, but then I'm like, no, there might be a mass exodus from Miami, and I think he might be one of them. So I think that Taylor comes in at 4 on my board. Another guy, I think not dissimilar from Stackhouse, where maybe not a first-round guy, but early day 2, you start restacking that board, and he's a guy that some teams are going to target. So that's where I settled with Leonard Taylor III.
He's my number 4 as well. We have the same 5 guys, just flipped 3 and 5. I'm with you. I think Miami, especially those defenders, I think can get out of there. And I think Leonard Taylor has the skill set to go to the NFL. I'm kind of with you. I don't even think he'll be a top 5 defensive lineman drafted, but I think the NFL potential is there to be a penetrating defensive lineman who can, play some base end, even just like the versatility's out there. And I think a lot of the other 3 and 4 year guys I have on my list just don't go to the draft ultimately.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not even going to get further down the list because it's a mess.
Yeah, I think we have kind of these uninspiring older guys, right? Like I think the Howard Cross the third we've talked about from Notre Dame, he's probably going to get drafted a little higher than a lot of people have him. Rook Horo from Clemson, he probably will do decently. Tavondre Sweat from Texas, but yeah, I mean it's
is Sweat the best like pure nose?
I think so. I think if you don't consider Stackhouse a nose, then I think Sweat is the best pure nose. That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
I think by far too. I don't know if there's anyone that really challenges him.
It's rough. So let's quickly go back over that. As they were roughly the same. Number 1 for me was Jer'Zhan Newton from Illinois. Number 1 for Shane, Jer'Zhan Newton, Illinois. Number 2 for me, Mason Smith, LSU. Number 2 for Shane, Mason Smith, LSU. 3 for me, Nazir Stackhouse, Georgia. Number 3 for Shane, Brandon Dorless, Oregon. 4 for both of us, Leonard Taylor III from Miami. Number 5 for me, Brandon Dorless, Oregon. 5 for Shane, Nazir Stackhouse. Like I said, same 5 guys, just flip-flopped on one guy there. Next week, Shane, we're going to look at linebackers, and I'm going to go make a bold prediction here that at least 1 or 2 of the guys we're going to talk about next week will not be drafted in the first 2 days of the draft just because of position value at that position. Now, I think we're going to see a couple of guys that we talk about next week are day 3 picks.
Wow. It's interesting. I think your boy Jim Nagy said that might be the best group at the Senior Bowl this year is the off-ball linebackers. So we'll see.
We'll see. I'm not saying that the group's not going to be good. I'm just saying I think the value of the position is going the way of the running back.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. It definitely is. But yeah, and there's not a lot of teams when I do mocks that I'm like, really need an off-ball linebacker.
Gotta have that linebacker, right?
Yeah.
When I was doing the second round of a mock the other day, I was like, I feel like I got to cram some of these guys in here. Like I was at pick 64 and still had Jeremiah Trotter sitting there. I'm like, well, hell, his dad played for the Eagles. Let's put him on the Eagles.
I love that. I always love doing that.
All right. So the Reese's Senior Bowl they're happening. They're hopping right now. 6 guys were extended invites this week. 5 have formally accepted their invites, but we're going to lead with the one who got his invite but hasn't accepted just because I wanted to talk about him and the performance he had last week against Florida. And that's quarterback Jaden Daniels becomes officially the second quarterback to get invited to the game behind another Louisiana quarterback, Tulane's Michael Pratt. But Jaden Daniels last week becomes the first FBS quarterback in history to go 350 in the air, 200 on the ground. The first player in SEC history to have 600 yards of total offense in a game. Is it crazy? I mean, there are people talking about it today. I don't think it's going to happen, but is there any chance he gets pushed up to QB1?
QB1?
QB1.
I think that's a little crazy.
I think so too. I
think like a top 10 pick. Yeah. Like I think
I had him top 10 in my mock this week.
Yeah. I think you probably be there. He should win. He needs to win the Heisman. I mean, I don't care about record. Like it's unreal to me that he's not going to win the Heisman.
Yeah, he's the best player in college football. If that's what the award is, he's the best player in college football. He needs to win the Heisman. I mean, there's precedent for it with 3 all. Like Lamar Jackson was on a 3-loss team. Robert Griffin III was on a 3-loss team. LSU is going to have 3 losses, but Jaden Daniels is the best player in college football and should win the Heisman Trophy without a doubt. If it goes to anybody else, it's a farce.
I hope he goes to Mobile and lights it up because I think Jaden Daniels can compete at the top. And hey, maybe there is a team. I mean, I thought at this point with Kyler Murray, like no way, and then that happens. So you never know.
Yeah, I mean, we never say never. for sure. But I never say never. I don't think it will happen, but we'll never say. But let's look at the other. Let's go quick through the other 5 guys that accepted invites, and there's some small school guys in here this week, and that includes running back that. Who did you compare him to?
Danny Woodhead.
Danny Woodhead, the Chadron State running back. Dylan Laub, the running back from New Hampshire, accepted his invite today. Very dynamic and catches the ball extremely well. Return specialist, special teams, great. Runs the ball, great. Is New Hampshire going to make the playoffs? Because I kind of want to watch him play before he goes to the Senior Bowl. So hopefully they'll make the playoffs. And I'll be able to squeeze that in.
Yeah, I'll have to look up what their record is. Yeah. But I mean, his receiving yardage almost matches his rushing yardage. He's going to be,
which is outstanding.
Top 3 receiving back. Now their record is not good enough to make the playoff. Wow. But I mean, Dylan Laub's phenomenal.
Yeah. YouTube, come on, baby. All right. But another small school guy, Division II player, gets the call this week, and it's Virginia State defensive back Willie Drew. I know absolutely nothing about this guy, so my first look at him, because I'm not going to go back and find Virginia State tape. There's no point. So my first look at him will be in Mobile, probably in the one-on-ones.
Look, if you want to learn more about Dylan Laub and Willie Drew, I wrote them up in my article today for Draft Countdown. I talked about some small school sleepers, and I mean, Willie Drew's like super athletic. I think he could run in the 4.3s. He's that kind of fast athletic corner that has a good nose for the ball. There's definitely a lot of upside there.
A pair of interior offensive linemen accepting invites this week. Christian Haynes from UConn, who I've watched this season. He's a stud, as well as Dominic Pooney from Kansas, who this is his first year in FBS, correct? He transferred up from D2 Central Missouri. So it's wild, man. I mean, to be able to come up and have this kind of season from D2.
Yeah, well, if you're good, now college teams will find you to transfer up, and the NFL will find you. So if you're good enough, you will be found.
At this point, if you're not getting brought up from FCS or D2, that maybe that's a sign that football's not for you. I don't know. I kid, but it certainly seems like it's heading that way. Final player who was invited this week and accepted just came out right before we came on the air, and that's Florida State tight end, maybe fullback in the game, Jaheim Bell, South Carolina transfer. Obviously, I think we can agree here, made the right decision and coming over from South Carolina to Florida State. But Bell, super athlete at the position, going to be a little undersized for a full-time tight end. That's why we projected him as a fullback in the game. But he's going to be an H-back weapon in the NFL, and I think he's a good offensive coordinator. Is going to have a lot of fun with this guy.
Yeah, I mean, he can play just so many different positions. I'm excited for you to see him down there, see your old friend there from the Gamecocks. I think Bell's going to get drafted pretty highly and have a great workout too.
Yeah, I agree. All right, that's going to do it for our main topics tonight. I forgot to mention earlier another injury kind of came across today that affects the 2024 NFL draft class, and that's Iowa corner Cooper DeJean. They're calling it a lower leg injury, but they're being very vague as to what that is. So we don't know if it's a knee. We don't know if it's an ankle. We don't know if it's an Achilles. We have no idea. We know it happened at practice. That's all we know. So I'm guessing maybe we'll find out in the next couple of days. But the severity of it is very impactful here, because if it's like an Achilles or, an ACL, that directly impacts a guy who we projected to be in the first round, right? So you're going to dock him for that into the day 2 at least. But if it's just an ankle or so, we can work around that.
Right. Maybe it's something he's shutting it down. Like there's no reason to play anymore. So hopefully it's nothing major.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's going to do it. We have no questions in Discord or in chat or on Twitter. So we're going to move on to final thoughts where the NCAA can go to hell. These guys are just trash. James Madison, currently undefeated, petitioned a waiver to the NCAA to basically allow them, because the NCAA has a very archaic rule where if you transfer up divisions, be it from D2 to FCS or FCS to FBS, you have to basically 2 years of no conference championships, no bowl games, anything like that. This rule is, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea why the rule was ever put in place to begin with, but now it looks really stupid when you can turn over a roster in 1 year. You can bring in 65 to 80 new players on a roster, and you don't have to worry about transitioning. You're already transitioned, right? So it makes absolutely no sense why James Madison, who should have been in a bowl game last year, this year should be in a New Year's Six bowl, or at least have a chance at a New Year's Six bowl game, because they would be the highest group of 5 ranked team right now if they were allowed to be in the playoff rankings, which they're not. So they're not eligible to win the Sun Belt title, which means they're not eligible for the playoff rankings. They're not eligible for a bowl game. This also adversely affects Jacksonville State, who is currently 7-2. And if they were to win this week, which by your lock of the week, they should, they would be playing for the Conference USA Championship against Liberty. They can't because of this rule. Now, both teams are likely going to get to play in bowl games anyway, because if there's not enough 6-6 teams in bowl games, then those two would be the next ones up before they go to the 5-7 APR ranking teams. So they're probably, and right now, most people who are projecting bowls think there's only going to be 78 bowl eligible teams for 82 spots. So they're likely going to get into bowl games anyway. But they shouldn't have to worry about that. They should be going to their conferences affiliated bowl games, or in the case of James Madison, potentially playing in the Fiesta Bowl or whichever bowl game the Group of 5 champion is going to be in this year. The Group of 5 representative into the New Year's Six bowl games. So it's just complete trash. The NCAA's trash. They were trashed for the Tez Walker ruling earlier. They continue to just show themselves to be complete morons.
Yeah, look, I you're right. I mean, why? Like, what's the? I don't understand the reasoning behind this rule, so I don't know. Now, if they get in because there's not enough eligible, do the other teams have to kind of get picked first, or
Yes.
is it like okay? So
it's
like
basically
get a garbage bowl because it might be under.
Well, here's the thing though. ESPN owns like half the bowl games. So ESPN gets to basically move stuff around, and they're gonna oh hey, we got James Madison now. Hell yeah, let's move 7th place MAC team out and put James Madison against such and such champion, and let's get us a good bowl game, good bowl matchup, maybe in New Orleans or something like the New Orleans Bowl or something that has some teeth.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see. I'm glad they'll be able to still go to something, but ridiculous.
But then you could have the scenario where, oh, hey, we have a bunch of upsets end up happening over the next few weeks, like say a certain team in the state of South Carolina were to win their last 2 games, then one of those spots doesn't come open, right? So you could start seeing scenarios where then they get bumped out if you start seeing, I don't want to call them mediocre teams, but teams that have underachieved this year win some games at the end of the year that maybe they aren't projected to win.
Yeah. So to speak. Hopefully not.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to see South Carolina get a bowl game, but that's just me. All right. That's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Draft Countdown Podcast. As always, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Like the videos, share them out as well. If you're listening to this on the audio version of it, be it on Apple Podcasts, be it on Spotify, or wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Share that out as well. We'd love to get those numbers up big time as well. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Deep Fried Draft. You can follow Shane on Twitter at Shane P. Howell. Follow Draft Countdown on Twitter at Draft Countdown. And as always, go to draftcountdown.com for your daily NFL draft needs. For Shane, I'm Brian. Good night, everybody.